very much looking forward to hearing more about Leaping Bunny. My small skincare business is Leaping Bunny certified, and it was such an honor. And I was really, I feel very proud about that. Having the label, it's a big deal. So anyway, this is exciting, but I'm going to get Bea and Andrew to introduce themselves. Since we're small, we might as well just each talk and we'll kind of move forward.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Hi
Bea.
there. I'm Bea Nicholson, and I live on Vancouver Island. And I'm working with Beagle Alliance, doing IT, web design, web development, all that tech stuff.
Great.
And eager to learn more about Leaping Bunny and how that, how it works and how you do what you do.
Sure.
And I'm Andrew. I'm faculty at philosophy faculty at Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia, Halifax, and a fan of the Leaping Bunny certification program.
Oh, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, and our rescue and volunteer director, Mary, may pop in. I know she's on a call that is, well, a priority. So I'll just leave her and she'll probably join. She may join as we go along. But Kim, I know I threw you a couple of questions we're pretty casual here. And so, usually I don't even, we kind of just go with the flow and people pop in with questions as we go along. So why don't we just get started and tell us a little bit about Leaping Bunny, as if we all don't know, and just your role and how Leaping Bunny was started, the passion behind that.
Sure.
Oh,
so
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting that your last name is Paschen, and I was like, oh, how appropriate. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, and if you say my first and last name together, it sounds like compassion.
Oh, compassion. Oh, yes, it does. That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Right? It wasn't planned that way, but I do think it's fortuitous. So I'm happy about that.
That's
so I've been working on the Leaping Bunny program since 2010, and I'm the program manager for Leaping Bunny in the US and Canada. And the Leaping Bunny program has actually been around since 1996, when a bunch of animal protection organizations got together and decided to create the Coalition for Consumer Information on Cosmetics, which is like a loosely organized body that runs the Leaping Bunny program. And so right now the Leaping Bunny programs sits at the American Anti-Vivisection Society, and they've been the chair of the program since 2007. So formerly it used to change hands every 3 years to a different organization, but the program has grown so much since 2007 that it's really not so easily moved anymore. We're sort of like the gigantic barge that would move really slowly, whereas we're not like this little, nimble ship that has 20 companies certified. We have now today more than 2,400 companies that we've certified as cruelty-free. When I began in 2010, we had a few hundred. So we've grown quite a bit in the last 13 years. And, it's been a really big honor and a great pleasure to just see the growth of our program and the increase in the number of new companies that care about ending animal testing, as well as older companies that really made a commitment, sometimes 2 decades ago at this point, to end animal testing, that are still certified. So it's a very gratifying experience to work on this program.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's quite a jump. I mean, that just goes to show you the way society's going too. And I'm sure there's I'm guessing that the majority of these companies pursue you. I mean, I know that it was quite an honor. You know, people want to have that logo and want to be able to say that they're Leaping Bunny certified, and Leaping Bunny certainly seems to be the gold standard. If I, you know, I'll use the term that they use in animal testing, but and that's for several reasons. Like, could you maybe get into, Kim, the levels of the cruelty-free world? And what I mean by that is the parent companies that are or aren't, the contractors that are or aren't. Like, what is the criteria? Because Leaping Bunny seems a bit more thorough, let's say. Leaping Bunny is very thorough in that regard.
Well, we certainly strive to be. When a company applies for certification with our program, and just to note, the certification is free for companies to get listed. You can probably attest to that. The only optional cost is if a company decided they wanted to license our logo to put on their packaging or in their marketing materials, but otherwise to be listed with us on our website and in our free app, it's entirely free for companies. And so the application is actually multi-stepped. A company would first indicate their interest, and we do an initial screening to see if they would qualify for certification with us. Like we don't certify manufacturers, for example. So once that process is complete, then a company is invited to really apply in a more thorough manner through our application of approval. And that's really a questionnaire that is devoted to finding more about a company, their manufacturing processes, if they use raw materials and manufacture themselves, if they use a third-party manufacturer, where they sell their products to, what their fixed cutoff date is, because every company that becomes certified must choose a fixed cutoff date after which no new animal testing can occur. And so all of this is put in their application of approval. And then an additional layer of verification is done by having companies send a declaration request to their manufacturers and or ingredient suppliers to essentially attest that they also do not test on animals after the company's fixed cutoff date. So they can sign this declaration electronically. Everything for the application process is done through our website, through a company portal. And once all of those declarations are collected, because a company does need to collect individual declarations, if they have 10 manufacturers and 5 raw material suppliers, they would then need to collect 15 declarations. And once all of those have been signed and the company's application for approval is complete, then we look at the entire application from our end and make sure that everything is as it should be. And then they would become certified with us, and they would be listed on our website. They would be listed on our app. They would be eligible to work with us on social media promotions, e-newsletter promotions, website initiatives. But all of those we offer also to companies for free. So that's kind of how the first year looks. And then every year after, the company would need to successfully complete a recommitment application, which is a time when a company can make sure that all of their information is up to date, that their manufacturers and or suppliers are still the current ones that they're using. And if there are new ones that are added, they would then need to get declarations signed by them, make sure that they're selling in the same countries that they had listed in their original application. Really just a check-in to make sure that the information is completely up to date. And this is a requirement for all companies to remain certified. So if they don't complete that recommitment application in a specified amount of time, we do actually remove them from the list. And what you see then is when you look on our website, when you look on our app, our list is updated every single day. So you do really get the most up-to-date list of actively cruelty-free companies, active cruelty-free companies that you could possibly have.
Okay, that's amazing. So I just want to touch on one thing. So it's basically it's the finished product that is certified cruelty-free. In other words, just as you said, it's not, you don't certify the manufacturers. They're just making a statement that their processes are cruelty-free, and it's the company itself that is the finished product that is the certified.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's quite in depth and up to date. And I think that's the key right there, is that you update it every day, because I know that there's always questions. You know, people will say, and I use CoverGirl as an example, because forever and forever, CoverGirl was not cruelty free. And then all of a sudden they were cruelty free. You know, like, people are always asking, because there's so many new companies coming in. There's so many long-standing cosmetic companies and supply, et cetera, that, you know, people get confused. They're not sure what's accurate and where everything's at. So that's great to know. That's amazing. So how did you get involved?
Yeah, definitely. We really take great pride in that.
Yeah, that's
well, so I got involved because, sorry, I'm sorry, was there like a little point that we lost connection?
No, I think it's just the time. I think it's pretty well, between my probable slow internet and our time difference, there's probably a little bit of a lag there. So that's fine.
Right.
I just wanted to hear a little bit about your history, and please, Bea and Andrew, if you guys have any questions, pop on in. I'm just thinking off the top of my head too. So what makes you passionate about Leaping Bunny? Like, how did you get it? How did you get started?
Well, it's really interesting because I can remember as far back as high school that I took a great interest in vivisection. And I remember in one of my classes, it was like a speech class, and we had to do a debate sort of topic or an expository speech on a controversial subject. And I came across vivisection, and I really kind of opened my eyes to what was going on. And this was like back in the 90s. I actually went on to study biology at the university level, and was really dismayed to sort of see that, dissection was alive and well, and there were not really opportunities at that point in the 90s to opt out of like dissection in school. And it really always bothered me to the core, the use of animals in science. And I did have other jobs and such after graduation that had nothing to do with animal protection, but it was always in my mind. I've been a longtime vegetarian, a longtime animal lover, first with dogs, now with cats. And I came across the Leaping Bunny program actually at a party where I met my now boss, who's the chair of the Leaping Bunny program, Sue Leary. And we met about, I guess it was 13 plus years ago at a New Year's Eve party. And I was doing some vegan baking in a community kitchen that was operated by one of her friends. And he had sort of, said, oh, Sue, you should really meet this woman, Kim, because she's really passionate about animal protection. And so we finally were able to meet at this party. And shortly thereafter, I started working part-time for Leaping Bunny, and then eventually moved into a full-time position. And it really was a unique time because while we were certifying companies, we didn't really have like a marketing and communications developed at that time really extensively. And it was right when Facebook pages were coming in, and companies were taking advantage of that platform. And so we really were able to grow very quickly in those first few years, thanks to algorithmic friendly Facebook at the time, which now, as we all know, is less than friendly.
Right.
And your posts don't get shown. But in those early days, we amassed a lot of followers through Facebook. And it was also the explosion of the indie beauty industry, with a lot of new brands coming onto the market that were taking over this new section of the market called indie beauty. And they were really not typical of like your drugstore brands or your department store brands. They really filled this other niche. And those brands also wanted to be, of course, cruelty-free. So we definitely have a lot of indie beauty brands that we've certified over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, that's something. It's kind of interesting how it all simultaneously happened. And I think that excuse me, I'm just going to admit Mary here. And I think it's the indie brands that really started sort of wanting to be a little bit different and wanting to do things differently. And so, hi, Mary.
Hi,
How are you?
crazy.
I'm sure. Anyway, we're chatting about the history of Leaping Bunny and Kim's involvement. So Kim, this is Mary, our volunteer and rescue director.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting the timing of that, because they really did, the indie brands and the small companies really did sort of want to be a little bit different from the large conglomerate cosmetic drugstore companies, which are still so many of them, interestingly enough, even though with public pressure and sort of people jumping up and down, a lot of the big companies, I mean, you can see them slowly trickling in and moving towards, but there still are a number of big companies that just will not turn it over. They just won't go, which I'm sure they've lost a lot of clients. However, maybe that's a drop in the bucket for them. I don't know. It's interesting. So and again, you guys just please go ahead and ask Kim, interrupt me at any time. But I'm just curious, Kim, what is Leaping Bunny doing now that maybe you didn't think what you'd be doing? Like how have you guys evolved and sort of moved into a direction that maybe in the beginning, you didn't think you'd be doing?
Well, we're on TikTok, which I never in a million years would have thought that we would be on. I really was like doing all of our social media up until the TikTok thing came about, and that's just really not my wheelhouse at all. I have no personal interest in it whatsoever, and I just think that we could do better than me making TikToks. And so we found an amazing TikTok content creator who lives in Florida. She has a rescue bunny named Pearl. And she's of that generation that really understands TikTok and likes it. And so we have a great TikTok channel now, with Grace as our star. And I'm really, really, really proud of that, because it definitely was a departure from our traditional way of communicating. But of course, we need to pay attention, certainly, to the younger generations. They're the ones that are going to be making all of the decisions in a few years. So we're really happy that we have now a platform that we can reach out to them on. And then the other thing that is a bit surprising is that we now are able to work with companies that want to remain Leaping Bunny certified and register to sell domestically in China.
Mhm.
And that is a relatively new development because up until very recently, it was essentially required for any imported cosmetics company that wanted to register to sell domestically in China to undergo a series of animal tests. And that requirement was waived by China's FDA, called the NMPA, a couple of years ago. And we were able to partner with a great consultant team in Shanghai, China, to audit companies both in the pre-market environment and in the post-market environment to make sure that they can enter China successfully and nothing gets tested on animals. And so we were able to last fall admit Burt's Bees as our first company that entered China successfully without animal testing. And we're in discussions with several other companies right now about entering. And so it's something that I never would have thought would have been possible just even 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it now is possible. There are lots and lots of hoops to jump through, and it's a long process, but it can be done.
That's great. Yeah, China was a big deal. So that's just amazing. And yeah, that's incredible. Sorry, Andrew, of course, I just assumed that you guys would, you're so polite putting the hand up. So anyway, of course I missed it. So go ahead.
I'm not sure I'm known to be polite in discussion spaces. I'll take that when I get it.
There you go. Yeah.
So Kim, thanks for taking the time to do this. Thanks also for this program, everyone involved. For those of us who are trying to avoid animal cruelty in various products, that's my go-to. When I'm in a grocery store, I'm looking for that logo. And also, checking online to see what chatter there is about various products. So thank you for making our lives easier, because
You're welcome.
that's it's a pain in the butt. Slows down grocery shopping enormously. Right? Standing in an aisle looking through my phone to see what I can find, because phones suck for searching this kind of thing. So thanks for making that easier. So a couple of questions. So one related to the certification program, because you're limited in what you can do. So I take it there's some way to keep an eye on companies to see if there's any whistleblowing going on about anything that would actually violate what they're signing for their declarations with you. That'd be the first thing. And then second question was, because you're located in Europe, so there's, in Canada, there's been actually for some time now a majority support for moving beyond animal testing for cosmetics. And it's been captured in various surveys that I think are actually quite reliable. You see chatter on Parliament Hill among folks that would like to see this happen, and occasional efforts to see it through the House of Commons or Senate, which are our houses of Parliament. But in Europe, I've noticed that as various countries have gone at least towards the area of they don't need to have their finished products tested using animals, that they've had a problem with the chemical regulatory agencies about their use of animal testing and ingredients. And so that's caused a great deal of challenge in how to actually navigate a space where the general populations want to see companies move to a cruelty-free space. The chemical regulatory agency is still under regulatory requirement to actually see various ingredients tested, animals still being their go-to for a number of these regimens. And so I'm wondering, one, what do you do about the certification and keeping an eye on chatter about violations of declarations? And then two, if you have any advice for those of us in Canada who are trying to, advocate with our members of parliament to support a move to a space where cosmetics aren't tested in animals, but without falling into this trap of a chemical regulatory agency still doing an end run around that, because they'll require certain ingredients used in cosmetics to still be tested on animals.
Those are great questions. So to answer your first one, we do conduct around 25 audits every single year. We have an independent auditor that really we've worked with for a very long time. He has a very good innate understanding of how our program works and the challenges that we have. And he used to actually go to the companies themselves in person. And then when COVID came and travel was restricted, we started doing audits remotely with like Zoom, just like we're doing right now. And it ends up working pretty well. And we're actually able to cover more ground because we pay for the audits. And in the interest of, saving money, we would have him do one geographical region and do 10 companies or whatever. Now we can do companies wherever they're located. And we, make sure that, well, the company is obviously notified in advance, and the audit itself is a very thorough look into a company's supplier monitoring system that they set up with us. It's essentially verifying that the ingredients and or finished products that a company is using to make their products, the declarations that we have on file for that company match up with the ingredients and or manufacturers that the company is ordering from. And so in that way, we're able to really make sure that a company is ordering from companies that have agreed to their fixed cutoff date. Now, in terms of actually going to the next level of an ingredient or a product manufacturer, in this instance, when that product manufacturer is signing a declaration, they are promising to have their own supplier monitoring system of the ingredients that they source, also in alignment with the company's chosen fixed cutoff date. So, we do put the onus on product manufacturers to make sure that when they are signing our declaration, they're doing so truthfully and to the best of their abilities. But it is up to them then to make sure that they're sourcing the appropriate ingredients. So we now audit, about 25 companies a year. And obviously that's just a sampling, but it's a very positive experience for companies. They learn a lot. We always provide feedback if there's missing information, give them time to remedy it, and flag anything going forward if we need to revisit. So it's been proven effective, and it's an audit, so companies know that it's a possibility, and they want to make sure that their supplier monitoring system is tip top. And of course, every year with our recommitment requirement, they should have it up to date. Sometimes not, but that's why we try to catch that. So we're really proud of that as well, because that takes a lot of work and planning to get those audits done. To answer your second question about the chemical legislation in Europe, which is called REACH, it is definitely a threat to ending animal testing on cosmetics, because it was legislation originally designed not to affect products in the personal care products category. However, based on increases in tonnage of raw materials, of course, some of the ingredients that are used in personal care and cosmetics products have actually needed to undergo some animal testing due to their quantities being used. And that is definitely a concern with us. Since we are the North American side of Leaping Bunny, most of our companies don't have to necessarily be concerned top of mind with this, because they're not sourcing from European companies that are making chemicals. But of course, supply chains are becoming more and more globalized, and the threat is real. And, right now, our way of trying to mitigate this is by educating our companies about this, so that they can really be informed to check with their raw material supplier and or manufacturers to make sure that their ingredients are not being animal tested on, and if there would be that requirement, that they would be able to source somewhere else. And so, I don't think this problem is necessarily going away. It's a really big deal in Europe because the REACH legislation actually surpasses the cosmetics directive ban, which was in its final stage implemented in 2013, which banned animal testing on cosmetics. But this law supersedes it and, essentially can nullify that cosmetics ban. So it's definitely progress. It's definitely a step in the reverse direction of what we would want. But the good news is that there was a European Citizens Initiative just this past summer that had to collect signatures so that they could present the case and to be heard for further potential changes to the requirements of REACH. And the number of signatures was reached, and now they can actually have a session or a meeting. I don't know the technical terms, so I apologize for that, but the goal was reached, and all of the animal protection groups in Europe really came together on this initiative to collect signatures. And that's it's a positive step in the right direction. I don't know if it'll change legislation, but we are certainly aware of the threat out there. And obviously we want companies to manufacture products that are safe for consumers, for workers, for the environment. All of that is important. But we do also think that it can be achieved without testing on animals.
Yeah, that's a great, thank you, Andrew, for that. And that just that forces me to go into my cosmetic formulation thinking, because in Canada, as a cosmetic manufacturer, you must submit what's called a cosmetic notification form. And you must select the every ingredient in its percentage of the formulation. And of course, it's automated, so it'll pop up and it'll say, known ingredient, or, known to be safe ingredient. Or of course, if you're using something outside of that, then it'll pop up that it's either on the quote unquote hot list. I forget what it's called. It might even just be the Health Canada hot list, a cosmetic hot list, I think is what it's called. And then there's either you may not use that ingredient, or you have to use it under a certain percentage. But I guess the point, it's sort of, to me, it's hand in hand. If manufacturers and cosmetic companies wanted to use known to be safe ingredients, they would not require animal testing to begin with. So for me, it seems so logical that companies would want to use these safe and effective ingredients that won't harm humans, that won't, harm their hormonal system, which is what usually those chemicals do, don't harm the environment, and then need not use animal testing. It would just be a win-win for the humans, the earth, and the animals. There would just be no testing required at all for anything. So it's too bad that that's a little bit of a backwards situation. We have it here as well, where there's a lot of unsafe ingredients that are permitted in cosmetics, that so long as you keep them under a certain percentage, they are allowed to be in cosmetics. So another education piece. It's just simple education of the public, really, but people have to be listening. So
yeah, and it's very complex because for a long time there have been a lot of emphasis on natural ingredients, and not all natural ingredients are in certain quantities are even safe. And so it's kind of, it sounds really good, and to an uneducated consumer that's making a quick choice, it's sort of black and white. But the one thing I've learned in the 13 years I've worked for Leaping Bunny is that most of what we do, it really exists in a gray area. And, so even companies that like may not be certified, they're really big. I'm not going to name any, but, a really big corporation, maybe they're still animal testing, but they could also, on the other hand, be one of the largest alternatives developers because they actually have all the money. And in the long term, their goal is to end animal testing. And, they're the ones that are paving the way for these smaller companies to make use of technologies so that they can be cruelty free from the get-go. And so, I generally try not to like vilify anyone, because I just think there's more to what you see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's kind of our stance as well. And we find that everyone, and I think, people like to jump on a bandwagon and decide who the evil ones are and who the good ones are. And it's exactly as you say, it's very much the same as the lab workers in animal testing. People want to say that they're evil and, they should be punished, etc. But it's just, there's more of a there's complexities behind it all. And
So many.
Yeah. And I think that it's not serving either the humans or the animals to start on the hate train. I think we need to focus on change, right?
Well, that's actually also something I'm really proud of at Leaping Bunny is we really don't focus on like companies that do test or, putting a company in the spotlight that didn't recommit. We really choose to focus on all of the companies that are doing an amazing job putting out fantastic products that are free of animal testing. Right. And we really have some incredibly innovative companies. I just wrote an article for our April e-news that's going out next week on Earth Month. And some of the companies that are putting out products that are waterless or that are using, 100% post-consumer packaging, like, it's incredible what these companies are doing now. And the quality in the products it's just amazing. Everything that I personally use is cruelty free, and I have been just so surprised at the level of quality and care that these companies have when they're making their products.
Yeah, that's amazing too. And it's great to see. And it's also interesting now how it's moved from not just what's in the bottle, it's gone outward to absolutely everything. It's become a philosophy, a mission. It's not about just the ingredients in and what you're using in the product. It's about the packaging. It's about the ink on the labels. It's about the label material. It's just, it's great to see how people have come up with so many ingenious ways to make everything safer.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is. Well, thank you, Kim. I just want to, Andrew, go ahead. Sorry. See, I was looking for the hand. I was looking for the hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to riff off your conversation there because I thought that was super interesting. I agree. I work in animal research ethics or the use of animals in science. And so as I write, I'm trying to have an audience where folks who might actually use animals can still engage critically with this. And you'd mentioned that the Leaping Bunny is housed in North America with the Anti-Vivisection Society. And so I'm just wondering, because my experience with at least some animal scientists, or that is scientists that do animal-based work, is that, we have a number of things in common in this space where a number of them, they're motivated by things like the cumulative effect of these chemicals in the environment, et cetera. So, it's one of the reasons why they have high dose experiments in animals when it's done at all. But they're, at least in my experience, some of the first to say, it'd be great to move away from, say, cosmetic testing, for instance, because it's, in philosophy, we call them low-hanging fruit. That is a fruit on a tree that's easy to pluck. I mean, let's get rid of that one. That should be an easy one to eliminate. And so I'm just wondering if this is doing some peripheral good work in helping you talk to, because you have a biology background, helping you talk to scientists who are at least of like mind and a number of common ground, so that can raise the level of quality of critical discourse on animal use. Because I find these can be interesting wedges to have a conversation that has a broader reach with scientists, not so much to win a day or anything, but to actually enrich a critical discussion, so that as folks go away and we all think about it, we learn from each other in all sorts of multi directions. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
So we really focus on the certification of the companies making the finished products, but AAVS, the chair of the Leaping Bunny program, has a separate branch called ARDF, which stands for Animal Research and Development Foundation. And they actually give out grants to researchers around the world that are working on non-animal alternatives. And so that's definitely a focus in AAVS's mission as a nonprofit. We don't get into that level just because there's only 3 of us that work full-time on the program with all the companies. So, there are many areas we would love to explore, like vegan certification, for example. But in order to really do our job well and make sure that supply chains are clean and free of animal testing, we really just focus on that one area and sort of leave other, like, I know EWG does safety assessments, and all of the groups that are part of Leaping Bunny also have like their own missions and advocacy and policy work. And so we really kind of let all of those individual organizations work on those issues while we focus mainly on the certification.
I'm stuck on the fact that there's only 3 of you working full time on Leaping Bunny. Can you just, before I move forward, can you, what?
I know everyone's really surprised at that. And there's 3 of us that work on it full time, and we really have our different areas that we work on. We work super well as a team. Luckily our website does a lot of the work for us with regard to sending out correspondences and such, and recommitment reminders, which, you need to do several times for companies sometimes. But yeah, I'm really proud of the fact that we have just 3 people running this program, and it's grown so much in the last 10 plus years.
That's incredible. That's an amazing, that's an accomplishment. How many companies you have certified just to manage them all, and 25 audits a year is an incredible amount when you think of the detailed
I
work.
know.
Yeah, that's incredible. I just want to ask you, Kim, just speaking a little bit about the black and white and how we see the vilification of people who in general aren't doing what we think they should, which happens all over society with every subject. But how do you feel about, how far do you think that boycotting companies that, will not go cruelty free, or just putting public pressure on them, how effective do you think that is? Or do you see anything like that where there's something that occurs there?
Well, we always tell consumers to vote with their wallet. So in the end, companies are listening, and you should spend your dollars where you want and with companies that you want to support. And, we have seen the tide turn. new companies coming into the market all the time. We see acquisitions of existing brands that are bought by parent companies that don't have their own in-house brand that's cruelty-free. And so clearly companies are listening. They want a piece of the pie. And if that means that they, have to stop animal testing, I think that in a lot of cases they want to do that. There could be, other issues at play, sticking to the status quo, development of a new ingredient. There are lots of reasons why a company doesn't become certified, or, just ends animal testing on its own. But we do say that in the end, that consumers do have the biggest influence on companies. And of course, legislation does not hurt. So if a law were passed in the US, or Canada for that matter, that prohibited animal testing on cosmetics, like the one in Europe, then companies would be forced to comply. There are always going to be loopholes. That's why we say that while that's certainly a step in the right direction, the way to really know for sure if a company is completely cruelty-free is to go one step further and look for the Leaping Bunny certification attached. But obviously legislation is a big motivating factor for companies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The whole parent company and subsidiaries and things like that. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, if you've got a smaller company, for instance, and I can't think off the top, I think Mary and I we were looking up one and one was quite surprising. I can't remember. Oh, you know what it was? It was a Veda actually. And I'm pretty sure it was a Veda, Mary, that we were talking about. And we just by the marketing, just by their ingredients, just by their social consciousness. And I apologize that I'm mentioning the company, but I am mentioning them in the positive. And you don't have to comment about them per se, but as an example, you would just assume they're cruelty-free, and they are, but yet I think that they are under a parent company that's not. Like, how do you reconcile that personally, professionally, as Leaping Bunny? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in all versions of our shopping guide, so on our website and in our app, we designate parent companies, rather, we designate brands that are owned by a non-certified parent company, so that consumers really can see if they want to support that, that parent company, because obviously some of the profits are going to be given to that non-certified parent company. And so we do designate that so that consumers are fully aware. As for, for me personally, what I alluded to before with companies, large companies that aren't certified, ideally, in an ideal world, they would all be certified and no animals would be tested on, but that's not the world that we live in today. Companies like huge corporations are the ones that have the financial means to really run programs that use alternatives in a meaningful way, develop alternatives that can be replicated, and then shared with other companies. And so, I don't think necessarily that they're like the quote unquote bad guys. I think that even if you asked, and I've talked to people that work for those companies, they don't want to do animal testing in this capacity. It's just sometimes there are gaps in alternatives where there are not yet validated means that are accepted for testing something. And right now, the standard protocol would be then to use animals, even if they're not the best choice. well, they're never the best choice, but they might sometimes be the only choice that are currently available. And so, you know, I think those companies are trying to do the right thing. And, you know, hopefully one day they can help end all animal testing. And in the meantime, we just make sure to be fully transparent, so that shoppers can decide for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great answer. And clearly that answer lives up to your name.
We try.
Yeah. So on that note, we're coming up on the hour, but no, that's an amazing answer. And I love the transparency and the fact that really it is in the hands of the consumers, and we have to choose to be conscious and then to make sure that we're doing our research. And that is something I love about the Leaping Bunny information, is that you can see that who's got a parent company. And I like that you said it even, as a cosmetic formulator and someone who is kind of diehard, I have to admit, kind of diehard, like why would you not be cruelty free? And on that note, why would you not use known to be safe ingredients, which would easily make you cruelty free? I have to say, you've made me a little bit more compassionate about the fact that there's more things going on behind the scenes there. So, and we just have to be conscious of that everywhere, I guess.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, our number one choice would obviously be for every company to not animal test, but it's like I said, we're not in the business of vilifying anyone, and you know, we're all trying to work towards the same thing in the end, which is ending animal tests on cosmetics and personal care products and household products, because it's really outdated, it's not reliable, and there are, in almost all cases, a better way to go about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you so very much. This was really informative and wonderful speaking with you. And I know it's 6 o'clock already for you. So
it's fine. I'm used to it.
Fair enough.
Totally used to it.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys all for being here and your questions. Andrew, appreciate it as usual. I'm sure I'll be in touch with you, Kim. We're going to get this up on our website. It's really important.
Oh, that would be great. I'd love to share.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're excited because people are, especially our fosters and adopters, some of them just, they want to help out and rescue a dog, but they really are new to the cruelty free. So it's really nice to have the resources and share your resources. And we now have a page, a cruelty free shopping page, and it's just amazing. It's great. Yeah, it's really great when people who aren't really aware come into it and they're excited to start their journey. And it's nice for us to have a great resource like Leaping Bunny to share with them. So thank you. Yeah. And
definitely, if you haven't linked to our app already, do that, because that really is the best source for getting information up to date if you're like in the store or something. Perfect. And we're constantly working on updating our scanner functionality so that more brands that have UPC codes can be found in the store, so that you're not, as Andrew said, like scrolling through the list. But it is up to date every day, and it's a completely free app. So we definitely encourage people to download that to make it a little bit easier.
Okay, well, that's going to be in Bee's hands like right now. That's
let me know if you need any more information.
Yeah. Leave that to the tech pro. Awesome. Well, thank you all so very much. And yes, I'll let you know when it's up on the site, Kim, for sure.
Sounds great. Okay. Thanks all for your interest. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you for what
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.